Hello Cancers, welcome to your weekly tarot reading for the week of July 13th to the 19th. I'm actually using a different spread this time. I will be drawing 4 cards and it will address your first house, which is going to be the aura or the energy you project out into the world, how others perceive you, etc. The second card deals with the 4th house, which is classically is related to the family, and it's also related to the mother, the home, the physical environment of the home. But in this situation, I will also be addressing, the what you need essentially to bring you back to like that sense of emotional fulfillment and emotional nurturance. The third card deals with your 7th house, which is related to partnerships in terms of romance or in business. And the 10th house is historically is linked up with the career track, but since we are doing a very brief weekly spread, I am going to use instead, financial windfall or your financial situation as well as your work environment. So it's kind of like a combination of the 6th house and the 10th house, but just for consistency, I'm going to use the 10th house. All right, so first card. Okay. Well, I'm just going to use those 4 that popped out. So let's see here. So for the first house, we have the 7 of Swords. Okay. The 4th house, we have the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse position. For the 7th house, we have the 2 of Wands. And for the 10th house, we have the Emperor. Okay, so let's talk about the first situation, which is the 7 of Swords, okay? I do feel in general that there is a sense of misrepresentation of yourself coming in the works here. I do feel in general as well, you are a water sign. This is a sword card. So this is something, the sword energy deals with communication. It deals with like very structural, institutional type of knowledge. It's kind of like knowledge that you gather from a learning environment rather than like practical knowledge that you gather from life experience, okay? So because you're a water sign and you're represented by the sword here, when people see you for this week, they're going to see somebody who's very verbose, and they're going to see somebody who is just talkative, who is a little bit of a teacher, but in this card is not altogether positive. So it's sort of like they feel that you're a certain way, but you're kind of like masking your intentions behind like very nice flowery words, very like you put on a very intellectual demeanor in order to project yourself in a way that I don't feel is entirely authentic. So, okay, so let me give an example. And, there's nothing wrong with this. I do feel a lot of you are intelligent, but I do sense that there's a little bit of a discrepancy between how others perceive you and how you want others to perceive you. Because the 7 of Swords is usually like, it indicates somebody who's kind of like trying to pull a fast one over other people. So it's a little bit problematic in that aspect. But I do feel, for example, too, okay, this is a better example, I guess. You might feel a certain way about somebody, but I do feel that you do tend to hide behind a very intellectual demeanor in order to mask your feelings, okay? Because innately you're a water sign, so you should be very expressive, and other people should be able to gauge your intention, or they should understand how you feel. However, it's being masked by a sword, an air energy, which deals with like communication, which deals with rationality and intellect. So you're kind of like putting on a mask in order to like hide the pain that is inherently, in your psyche. So you're feeling a little bit of sadness, a little bit of pain, but you're masking it by deferring to your intellect to help you process the pain. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just be a little bit careful for this week that you don't intellectualize your feelings. There we go. Don't intellectualize your feelings. So in a social interaction situation, if you're mad at someone over something that they did to you, you try to rationalize it, and you try to like get past it, and you're just telling yourself, oh, it wasn't so bad. He or she probably had a good reason for doing something that they did. When in fact, it's like, no, they hurt you. There's nothing wrong with that. Process your feelings and then move on. You don't have to make excuses for them. You don't have to like justify or rationalize why it happened. It just happened so that you learn and that you don't interact with them in the future, okay? So this is something that can be problematic, so try to just process whatever it is that you're going through and just get over it, in the long run. Just get over it. And don't be too rational when it comes to your emotions. Don't try to make sense of everything, okay? Like, there's no fun in that. We're not supposed to understand everything. Alright, so for your 4th house, I do have the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse position. So this is basically, like I mentioned, the 4th house refers to your home. It also refers to the things that bring you emotional fulfillment, okay? So in the reverse position, I do feel like a lunar cycle here. So a lot of you might be returning to a previous home situation. A lot of you might have like wanted a new home environment that didn't come through. So there's a little bit of sadness associated with this as well. A little bit of grief and, just wanting to escape, wanting to get away, and feeling a little bit shut in, a little bit claustrophobic, and feeling that cabin fever kicking in the home environment. So there's something unpleasant here surrounding the home situation. And you want to move away from it, but for some reason you're stuck. You're feeling very, very stuck. So let me just look at the cards and see if there's anything coming through. I'm getting an element here of like 2 days, 2 weeks, based on the clock on this card. So, and it's also in the time of Pisces. Pisces and Gemini. We passed, so a lot of you might have moved in the time of Gemini, and then you're waiting around for an element of like 2 weeks, 2 months in order for this situation to resolve itself. So just keep in mind, it is going to resolve itself. We are going through like a very weird moon cycle. So we do have a blue moon by the end of this month, so that could possibly be when the situation will resolve itself. The blue moon is happening on July 31st in Aquarius, so I'm hoping this is something that will, resolve itself for you. In terms of your relationship, we have the Two of Wands here in the reverse position. So going back to the monthly reading, I do feel an element of like juggling 2 things, possibly 2 relationship partners or even 2 business partners. And you're trying to decide the best route to take at this point. It's in the reverse position, so I do feel the choices are possibly dwindling, and you have decided on how you want to proceed ahead. At the same time, the Two of Wands is kind of like the planning stages. It's indicative of, laying down a very solid game plan so that you can execute and proceed with them when the Three of Wands come into the picture. So this is like the implementation stages. For some reason, a lot of you might have bypassed this stage. A lot of you might have like been very muddled going into new relationships, new work partnerships, and you're kind of like hoping for the best and kind of like fumbling in the dark to see what works and what will stick. And in general, that's not a great approach to life and relationships. So I think a lot of you might have come to this realization because the Seven of Cups came out here first. Okay, so this is like somebody who is being sneaky. So in this situation, I do feel that revision of your original game plan is in order, and trying to make it a little bit more, I guess, like practical. Yeah, a little bit more practical. So don't be overruled by your heart. Okay, so this also makes sense here. Underneath the Seven of Swords, what I do feel is that you're coming into contact with somebody who might have hurt you, and you're putting on a brave face, and you're trying to like not show your feelings. You're not trying, you don't really want them to know how you feel deep down. So there's that element of like hiding behind a mask, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. We all have to do it, and that's how we cope. So the next card actually looks very favorable. So I do feel this is like the saving grace in this spread actually. So sorry, Cancer. So the 10th house deals with your work situation, your career, and your finances. We have the Emperor here. So there is an element of great success, financial success, recognition, and even like reclaiming your territory. So a lot of you might have like taken on a lot of new clients, or a lot of clients from other contractors, for example, have just flooded your way, and you're sitting in a good place right now. You're in a comfortable spot. You are kind of like expanding your domain, and you are trying to like take on additional clients. So you're expanding your business, potentially you're taking on more clients. In a work situation, this is a card of mastery. It's somebody who has mastered his craft, and he's like in a position now where he can sit back and he can decide what he wants to do for the next phase in his life. So it's a really positive card. It also indicates divine intervention. A lot of you might have a very strong, it's a masculine card, so I would say a lot of you might be working under a very, very strong influential figure, or there is a very strong influential figure that is coming into your work environment. It could be temporarily for this week, who is very charismatic and who's giving you a lot of pointers into how you can succeed in the work environment or in the field of work that you're in. So it looks really, really favorable. I mean, like the Pentacles card are not showing up in the work environment, but I do feel when the Emperor is in your 10th house, you're going to get a lot of help, you're going to get a lot of recognition, and this is basically, you have to push through it in order to see very rapid results in the future. So it's coming in very soon, a lot of success, a lot of satisfaction on the work front, and it's at this point, you're competent enough where you feel like you don't need another supervisor, you don't need somebody, watching over you to make sure you're doing the right job. You're coming into your own, and you are getting the lay of the land, and your work environment is going to be smooth sailing from now on. So very, very favorable card. It's good for like having, handling like really expensive or really successful, it's just successful workflow, but also like being in high demand in your work environment if you're in a consultancy or like a project-based type of work situation. Okay, so Cancers, don't worry too much. I do feel that maybe because the 10th house is, the Emperor is in the 10th house, that's why you're kind of like going out of your way to show somebody that you're very intelligent, that you're very capable. So that makes sense. You're trying to like impress somebody, and it might be somebody in your work situation. So that makes perfect sense. So let me know how this plays out and how well you like the new spread. I'm going to continue using this mainly because it saves time, and I actually like this format. So I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.